From Jerusalem, Israel. This is Mr. Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited, established in the United States of God of Israel, bless America, in New York State in 1981, now celebrating our 43rd year. Today is Wednesday, March 20th, 2024 in the Gregorian calendar. And now that it is after nightfall, it is the beginning of the 11th day of Adar Bet. The second 12th month, we have a leap year, so it's 12B of the Hebrew Israelite year 5784. And we're looking forward to celebrating as best we can in these trying times Purim, which is coming up Motzei Shabbat, Saturday night, for those who don't know what that means, and Sunday worldwide, and on Sunday night and Monday in Jerusalem, which once was a walled city. I mean, there's still a wall, but the city's much bigger than the wall. So we celebrate that. That's Shushan Purim. So welcome to episode, what do you know, we're up to episode 23 of our monthly Ancient Roots Mothering, Roots, Nettles, and Sage. Did I get that right? Yes. With Madam Co-Chairs. I only recognize chairs and madam chairs. No disrespect for people in other categories, but I recognize chairs and madam chairs. Madam Co-Chairs in alphabetical order, Mrs. J. Rivkah Asoulin from the Lower Galilee, here in the land of Israel. Mrs. Chava Dagan, Northern Negev, here in the land of Israel. And Mrs. Gilla Weiss from Florida in the United States of God of Israel, bless America. Let's see. Gilla, there's someone else who's come in on your, you must have a guest.
It was me. I just swapped from my phone to my laptop.
Okay. Let's see. Right. Okay, fine. I see that. So before we begin, let me do the rainmaking bit for all of us. Please support our work. Please support my work to build our Hebrew Bible-based, what is this? Build our Hebrew Bible-based broadcasting network from Jerusalem, Israel, to honor the God, land, Torah, and people of Israel. And I want to thank the small and growing number of people who are doing just that. And please support the work of Rivkah, Chava, and Gilla. They have wonderful websites which tell you the many ways you can do that, some of which are financial, but there are many other ways as well. And now, without further ado, I'm handing over the mic to Rivkah, Gilla, and Chava. Madam Co-Chairs, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Lowell Aryeh, a lion of our people. I'm just going to say that every time I say Lowell Aryeh, because it's true. I feel like the beginning is laughing, you know, we're announced and we can do jazz hands and all those things. Maybe it's just me being silly. Or maybe it's because it's almost Chag Purim that we're feeling a little silly. How's that for a segue? Today, we are going to discuss just that, the two faces of Purim, the two faces of Purim. And we're going to deal with 5 aspects of Purim and try and maybe dig in deep into the roots and see what's really going on there. Some interesting things that maybe we should be remembering about our ancient roots with regards to Purim. So I first want to thank everybody who attended the conference, who watches the show as well, the Ancient Roots Israel International Herbal Conference. It was our 3rd conference. Really incredible. The recordings are available at ancientrootsisrael.com under registration or booking, something like that. So check it out on the website and get the recordings and be enlightened and inspired and and learn a lot. Okay, so Purim, in Hebrew, the word panim means face. However, when we talk about panimi, we're talking about, which is the same word, okay, panim. We're talking about inside, what lies beneath the surface and what is not readily available or accessible or apparent. And it seems like these are two opposites. When you see the face of something, or a person's face, it's what's presented to the world. It's the first thing that you see. It's what's on the surface. It's, the don't judge a book by its face, if you will. However, it does really present something. And yet there's this duality to this word that denotes something that is your true self. Now, when we talk about Purim and we talk about wearing a mask, the ladies and I we're kind of bouncing around this idea, because we're told two things. Again, there's the duality. There's a part of you that's hidden, okay? That the mask, and on one hand, you're kind of hiding yourself with the mask. You're hiding who you are. And on the other hand, there's esoteric thought that the masks that we wear, or the costumes that we put on for Purim, is actually a manifestation of our deepest desires, our deepest selves. And I guess the third point I want to use to kind of illustrate that is, I was a professional child actress, and in the theater, one of the first things we are taught when crafting a character is to break up the scenes into beats, into moments, they're like little capsules of emotional moments. And to look at the main emotion that we can extract from the text and see what that emotion is. And then to find the exact opposite counterpart to that emotion and play both of those emotions simultaneously, or just play the opposite and let the text be the emotion on the surface, but the opposite emotion is what's driving it. It's like a soul inside the body, if you will. So there's this kind of understanding that of the duality, of the dual nature of life. And Gilla was pointing this out at the International Herbal Conference when some of our speakers were speaking about the duality of the plants. So as Chava says, we've done an herbal conference. If you want to see that, go get those recordings and look into it. We're not going to recreate it here. However, the herbs, oftentimes, when people will say, what do you do for? I call it the what do you do for's. And there's an herb that's like good for tummy aches or good for headaches or something that comes up. But we have to remember that when we're dealing with Hashem's creations, such as plants or people, the duality is always very accessible and present and real, in ways that some things that we create, like, we might create a hat or a mug or, I don't know, some sort of thing. It may not necessarily have that duality, that dual intention. And so for the herbs, sometimes an herb that can, say, quell morning sickness in a pregnant woman can also be potentially abortive or emmenagogic, meaning to bring on the menses in pregnancy or not. And the dosage matters. And the way the dosage doesn't involve how much only, it also involves how the herb is prepared. Is it a tea? Is it a tincture? Is it external? Is it a poultice? Is it internal? There's when I say dosage, I'm thinking of all those things, not just like 5 drops versus 2 dropperfuls or something. There's a lot of duality in the plants. And so if one plant is sticking out as something known for this, you have to also be mindful that it could be used for the opposite, perhaps in a different way. So this is really what we're seeing in the holiday of Purim. We're going to talk about 5 aspects. I think that was our first one. No, that wasn't our first one. It kind of was. But just kind of keep this in mind as we're talking, that this duality is part of Hashem's design. in the blueprint of everything that Hashem has created. So should we talk about the poppy seeds next? Are we game? Gilla, you want to do that? Okay, so poppy seeds.
Just dive straight in. So I'm just going to go straight into poppy because Purim is literally synonymous with poppy seeds, or as we call them in Hebrew or Yiddish, mon. And interestingly, as Rivkah speaks about the hidden and the revealed and the duality, so there's a lot of play on certain names, root words, and letters when it comes to Purim. So mon or man is what poppy seeds are called in Hebrew or Yiddish. And man could also be part of the root word of Haman. So there's already a little bit of a play on the words in the spirit of Purim. So I did a little bit of a research. Where did we start with poppy seeds? So as everybody who knows me, we always have to go back to a little bit of history, right? So there are sources that tell us, we're told, our Masorah, our traditions, we're taught that when Esther married King Ahasuerus, the king of Persia at the time was very powerful, the Persian Empire. He wasn't just king of a little area, he was king of an empire. When she joined him in the palace, she actually hid her Jewish identity in the beginning, and at the same time was very loyal to her Jewish identity. So there we have that hidden and duality again. One of the things we told that Esther, Queen Esther, did was, in order to keep the holy laws of kosher, she refrained from eating meat while living in the palace and was a vegetarian. And we're told that she ate a lot of seeds, nuts, and pulses like grains. So one of her foods was poppy. There are also sources who say that when she fasted for 3 days, she subsisted on poppy seeds. So it's unclear exactly whether she used them as food, whether she used the oil on her skin, whether she drank a tea from poppy seed, or how or what exactly she did. But we know that we, in honor of Esther's use of poppy, is where we really get our modern day use. And if we want to call Middle Ages modern times compared to antiquity, it is. The first Purim spiel was in, I think it was somewhere between the 13 and 1400s in Italy, mentioned Oznei Haman. Apparently, that is the first reference to Oznei Haman. And in Hebrew, we think of Oznaim, ears, Oznei Haman, as the ears of Haman. Actually, I did not find a single reference to what we think is what it comes from, meaning there is no actual reference to having cut his ears off. But that became kind of an urban legend kind of thing. We don't know. But interestingly, it's mentioned by Rabbi Abarbanel also, I think in about the 1400s or beforehand, manna. He referred to manna, the man that we received in the desert from God. Man, again, the man, the play on the words. He referred to it as making pastries with the manna, as oznaim. So these are something not connected to Purim. I had no idea. But in our Torah, we always find meaning and words. We can take as deep a dive as we want. And this is in the spirit of Purim. So a little bit about actual poppy seeds. Poppy seeds, most people know them. If you're from Europe or Central Europe, Eastern Europe, pastries are pretty commonplace and popular with poppy seeds. If you're from the US, everybody knows bagels with poppy seeds. And in Israel, you know, the cakes and osnei haman with poppy seeds. So poppy themselves are a tiny, tiny black seed, but that tiny black seed carries quite a punch. Nutritionally, they're quite a powerhouse, believe it or not. You can make an oil that is apparently even good for the skin and many skin issues. And in addition to that, poppy, we know, is a calming herb. So poppy is considered calming. It's antispasmodic, so it calms the muscles. Poppy is known for anxiety. It's known for calming the muscles. And something that maybe we don't think of when we talk about poppy is the respiratory. And why I mention this is because, yes, you can go and look it up. Poppy is helpful for things like asthma, coughs, bronchitis, pleurisy, many, many respiratory issues. But when we take something that helps us to take a deep breath in, that helps our whole system to calm. It helps the nervous system, the parasympathetic. And so even if it doesn't have a direct effect on the nervous system, it has an indirect effect. And poppy is also used as a flavor the world over. So it's not just an herb, it's not just a nutritional seed, but it's also used for flavor. So I think I'm going to leave it there and let Chava come and share what you know.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So just before we move on from poppies, there was a couple things that I was thinking of. First of all, we mentioned before the doctrine of signatures. What something looks like might have something to do with what it heals, what it works with. And poppy seeds, when you look at them really close, they're tiny little seeds, but if you look at them really close, they are sort of kidney shaped. And we know that they do, they're able to break down kidney stones. They also look like little tiny stones. If you look at them, they're all bumpy and jagged. And they also, as a kidney shape, they might look a little tiny bit like lungs, which, like you said, it helps calm down. If you have a cough or something like that, it's helping to calm things down. They are also really good for pain, which is part of their calming effect, which I loved the analogy or the story even of Esther subsisting on them before she went to the king. Instead of being killed, I mean, that is an option. You are not allowed to go anywhere near the king unless he offers his scepter. And she didn't know what the outcome would be. So she fasted, perhaps on these seeds for 3 days, which we know contain opium on the seed pods. And back then, before we had high technology and ways to filter and whatever, so they would have been a rougher food, which might have contained some of that opium. And can you imagine having to know that the entire, future of the Jews in Persia results in you walking up to the king, either being killed on the spot or having his grace to actually listen to your plea? She would have been flipping out, freaking out, her nerves and shaking and hyperventilating and all of these things, not knowing. I mean, that's a big task to take on, big responsibility. So the poppy seeds might have helped to sort of put her in a sedative, calm way of just floating through the whole scene, really, because instead of shaking and probably collapsing to her knees, she would have to look confident, she would have to look beautiful, and she would want to capture his attention. And all of these things would make a person a nervous wreck. And this really, really would help her. It makes so much sense, even why we use them at Purim. We have the whole thing of wine and getting drunk. And then we have this sort of psychedelic, if you want to say that, very sedative, kind of putting you in another world that you can sort of step out of, like Rivkah was saying, your own mask and becoming your true self while dressed up in a costume and while celebrating Purim. But the poppy, it really represents a whole nother level than any other, regular dessert that you might come across. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, coming into herself is exactly what she had to do. She had to reveal herself as a Jewess. And, you think about the opium dens and also why opium was used. I mean, opium would give a flush to the cheeks, the widened pupils, to be even more like beautiful and attractive, the things that women did. I mean, women would do that with belladonna. I don't recommend that you do that. If you want to know why, check out the toxicity of that plant. But anyway, so I think that, we understand that the oral Torah, the Torah Shel Baal Peh, is really in the realm of the women, of the feminine, whereas the written Torah is really in the realm of the masculine. And so Torah Shel Baal Peh, which is the oral Torah, this has been really lost to us. There's a lot of big gaping holes. There's a lot of unknowns. Why? Because we were forbidden from writing it down. You were supposed to have a certain amount of knowledge to understand that kind of feminine esoteric energy. And that was supposed to be closely guarded and passed down from father to son, mother to daughter, grandfather to grandson, grandmother to granddaughter, or rabbis to their students. And I think that it's something very, we don't think about these poppy seeds that we eat, especially on Purim. We don't think about it, the ubiquitous poppy seed, Hamantash and Oznei Haman, but that may have been a gift that the mothers who did the majority of the cooking and baking passed down so that we never forget that feminine quality, the courage, and what incredible distress Esther was under, which she says outright. I mean, when she's first asked to go to the king, she says, no. And Mordecai has to tell her, maybe it's for this moment that you were created. If you think you can stay and hide your true self, you won't. Someone else is going to save the Jews, and they'll come after you as well. So we know her fear. Yeah, there's a lot more to say about that, but okay. We covered poppy seeds. We covered the masks and the costumes. We started to cover Oznei Haman and Hamantashen. Would we like to say some more words maybe about the Hamantashen and Oznei Haman, and maybe the symbolism that we don't think much about the ears and the pockets?
Okay, so one thing was, yes, there these little pastries, a few things that I was reading about. So there's a lot of symbolism because it goes back so far. Some people, well, perhaps it was this and perhaps it was that, and all of it could easily be because it all fits so well. And what I love about this holiday is Purim and Punim or Panim and Punim play on words always throughout the entire thing. It is a play on words. And one of the sources that I was reading says that when the king made this edict and sent out messengers with letters all over Persia saying you are allowed on this specific date to massacre the Jews anyhow.
We lost Chava mid-sentence. Poor Chava, she's right on the front lines over there in the Negev, and the internet will come in and out, but Chava will come back to us. But she did mention now the three faces of Purim. The Purim and Panim. I didn't think about that one. We can come back to that, but the Oznei Haman, so what do ears do? The hearing. Oh, good. Chava's back. The hearing, we'll put you back in here. The hearing, the lack of hearing, the hearing and really understanding. The pockets, what are pockets for? It's like what you carry on you all the time, what you hide what's hidden to everybody else, but it's with you and you know it's with you. It makes me think of another Tolkien reference. What is it got in its pockets is, regarding this most precious ring. But anyway, those are some things to think about, and why the pastry's got the name. But yes, Chava, please continue.
So, so what he wrote, Mordecai, in the letter was that also Haman and also the king made this edict that every Jew will be killed. He wanted to make it sound like if it's coming from the king, even though the king allowed it, but he wasn't actually the one who said it. But he said so that people would take it seriously. But he said, well, what if the king sees these letters? Then I'll get in trouble, and everyone will, the joke will be on me instead of getting the real message out. So he said, so what I'm going to do is hide the letters in pastries and deliver pastries to the Jews. And when they open up those little cookies like a pocket, they'll see it and they'll realize it's so secret that they had to put it in the cookies. We better take it seriously. And another thing was, when we eat these Hamantashen, we are destroying Amalek and we are destroying Haman from generation to generation as we eat them with our own bodies, digesting them. That was another thing. What else, Gilla? I don't remember everything. Let's see.
So yeah, I read about Mordecai sending the messages in the hidden pastries, and the pastries themselves symbolize hidden messages because the man is hidden, supposed to be hidden in the pastry. And there's a midrash that says about the three-cornered hat that Haman wore, and which our Hamantashen are shaped with three corners, that essentially when Haman recognized the pillars of our three forefathers, three of the forefathers, and the strength, he was tremendously weakened. And that is one of the reasons that we have the three corners to remind us. So here we have this pastry that is so full of symbolism that every bite is literally dancing with spirituality. There's also, interestingly, a connection between the names Purim and Yom HaKippurim. So who would have thought of the connection between Yom Kippur, which is one of the holiest days, one of the most serious days of the years, we fast the whole day, and Purim, which is the most joyous day, but there definitely is a connection. And again, we are just bringing a little bit to the surface of the duality and the play on the words of the Yom HaKippurim, Yom Kippur, and Purim. And interestingly, on both holidays, we have the hidden. So we do this, we symbolize this in our foods. On Purim, we have the Hamantashen, the Oznei Haman. And on Yom Kippur, many of us have the custom of eating kreplach, dumplings with meat or something else hidden inside. And there are people who have kreplach on Purim as well. So that's just another on the surface play on the words and more about these amazing pastries. Rivkah.
It's the original Jewish fortune cookie.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to bring that back. So Abigail is on the call. You can pass that along to your husband. Okay, so I think, yeah, it's super deep. It's super deep, and we lose it. And you know what we're doing at Ancient Roots is we're trying to get back to the roots of our ancestors. Like this, we do so much by rote, and we forget. You know, I was talking with my children about paintings, the beautiful paintings of the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. And we were talking about the fly that would sometimes be on the head or the piece of clothing of the person who was painted, and what the fly meant. And the fly could mean that the person had died, or the fly could, there were, you know, the forget-me-nots, a bouquet of flowers that someone was holding in a painting. That was a message. So the messages were passed on, not with words, not with books. Think Midrash, think Torah Shabbal Peh, the oral Torah. They were passed on with a lot of symbolism. And we really have a lot more in common with the, indigenous earth-based spiritual practices than, say, modern religions like Christianity and Islam in that way. But we've kind of like, I don't know, broken the chain. Another thing that's always really concerning and turns up the heat and gets a lot of people's feathers ruffled is the issue of drunkenness on Purim and the issue of alcohol. We're commanded to not be able to tell the difference between Mordechai and Haman. And I think we should explore that a little bit, jump into there. Do either of you want to start?
Okay, so one thing that I was seeing, Gilla just put Yom Kippurim and Purim together. There's also the connection of Hanukkah and Purim. So Hanukkah its symbol is oil, which is light, it's spiritual, it's all the miracles were taking place from God's hand from above. And then Purim, its symbol would be wine, like you're saying, the alcohol. And it's more of a very physical, there's parties, there's gifts, there's the drunkenness. And then God's hand, because he was never mentioned in the Haggadah of Esther, Purim, his is, okay, so there's the two toys, basically. At Hanukkah, we spin from above the dreidel. And at Purim, we spin from below the grogger or whatever, the noisemaker, right? So that's how God was performing the miracles here from down below, from coincidences right on earth. No one even mentioned his name. All of these funny things that just sort of happened along the way and put the right people at the right place and the wrong people in the wrong place. And the whole thing was based on Hanukkah for oil and Purim for wine.
And the connotation of light in the song, where light and simcha, light, joy and light. Mm-hmm. But it's an eternal light, panimi.
Yeah. I love that. That's so beautiful. Thank you, Chava.
Yeah, that's great. So beautiful.
Wow.
Alcohol as well. We talked about that. We keep talking about the duality. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. This is my European friends always make fun of. This is my American side. They're like, just say it once and let go of it. We got it. But anyway, okay. So not being able to tell the difference between Haman and Mordechai. Many Jews take that to mean you're so drunk you can't even follow the conversation, whatever. And I'm not quite sure that's what Hashem wants from us. I've never seen another instance where Hashem wanted us to be so out of it that we couldn't analyze text. And there are many rabbis who agree with this. So what are we talking about? What does it mean can't tell the difference between Mordechai and Haman? And I want to pose it for you that perhaps it's the duality that should become so apparent to us and so clear to us that there's Haman in Mordechai and that there's Mordechai in Haman. And that we should be so enlightened on the inner secrets on Purim that we shouldn't be able to tell the difference. Now, Rivkah, what are you talking about? Mordechai saved the Jewish people and Haman tried to destroy them. These are clearly opposites. One's a good guy and one's a bad guy. But how many of us are sick and tired of having this simplistic black and white view that we've been fed by the media, by, everyone really, about this is bad and this is good. And it's rarely ever the case. And what we learn in halakha is that it doesn't really matter if it's in general bad and in general good. There's other factors that matter, like intention, okay, kavanah. So anyway, how is Mordechai like Haman and Haman like Mordechai? Well, first of all, once we understand that Hashem is Echad, once we think about Hashem while we're dancing on the banks of Yam Suf at the Exodus, and Hashem's, saying, how can you be joyful while my creations are dying? We're all children of God. We're all God's creations. The story that they would have us believe about COVID, that, this one guy got it from a bat or something, and then in a few weeks, the whole world has it. There's something very beautiful about that story, and there's a kernel of truth. And that's why I think so many people believed it and latched onto it, which is, it's like a ripple, in a pond, and it branches out. We all affect one another. We might not be able to see it or understand how. What happens to one guy in China can affect the whole world in a few months. I'm not saying I believe that story. I just want to make that clear. Like an American and beat the dead horse. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the reality is that whatever you believe about what happened, we know that it originated somewhere, and the entire world was affected in a very short amount of time, because we really are all one body, one organism, created by Hashem. And it's not just people, it's everything Hashem created. It's the plants, it's the stars, the moon, nature, the whole thing, all of it, all of Hashem's creations. So any more thoughts maybe about that?
So it's really interesting. Again, we're going to have a little play on words because it's Purim spiel. So the Ad Lo Yada, as Rivkah aptly explained, is, getting to a stage of intoxication that you can't recognize the cursed Haman or the blessed Mordechai. Essentially, Rabbah, one of the sages of the Talmud, said that it is the duty of a man to mellow himself until he reaches this state of intoxication. And as a woman, we sit back and think, well, why not us? Why is it only the man and always the man? Us modern women, we have this bee in our bonnet and etc. And then I look at Rivkah and I look at Chava and I'm like, do we need to be intoxicated to be mellow? No. We have a spiritual joy of being women and mothers that we can access. And again, we can use play of words, or this is the duality of the male female. And as Rivkah explained, the little bit of Haman in all of us and the little bit of Haman in Mordechai and Mordechai in Haman, in a modern day term that might appeal to people, as an analogy, I would think of it as the yin yang, so that you can realize there's always a little bit of that black spot in the white and a little bit of the white in the black. And so again, we see these themes throughout antiquity across cultures. I wanted to say something about Poppy, even though we're done. We're never done. And this is to us feminine women. When you look at an Hamantaschen, it looks a little bit like female anatomy. And interestingly, in ancient folkloric traditions, poppy seed was considered one of the major seeds of fertility. So, we have all these hidden meanings. And here's another one, which I just, as a woman, had to bring to the surface from its hidden depths so that you could all appreciate that. On the other side, one more thing about poppy, and this is the flower. The seeds would be contained within, but the flower itself has always been a symbol of fallen soldiers. So again, we can go back centuries, and even in modern day, you see people. I remember being in England one year, and it might have, I don't remember, it was Trooping of the Colors or something, and people were all walking around with their poppy pins. You see this in many places in the world. So it just shows how these things are connected and all connect, and we can find them in our sources and how the sources travel throughout for all of these things. The Ad Lo Yada has in modern times, I think since the 20s, became known. If you ask somebody today who does not know exactly what adloyada means from the point of view that it's from our Talmud, being intoxicated, many people know adloyada as one word meaning a humorous procession, which was started as a Purim humorous procession. And even today, many communities, our community too, people will go out into the streets to do a dance or a sing outside as part of the procession of the Adloyada, which again, humorous, Purim, laughing, fun, the masks, theatrical, spiel, and the public, the walled cities. Typically, the Adloyada is done on Shushan Purim in walled cities the world over, but especially in Yerushalayim. So that's the Adloyada. Chava, Rivkah.
Yeah, that's super beautiful. Chava, you want to jump in?
No, I just wanted to know, yeah, thank you, Gilla. Where you want to take it from here?
Well, I'm back on this this topic of poppies. There's a million things running through my head, but that's also really important. I mean, this is a feminine holiday. It's really giving a lot of respect to Esther. But have you ever noticed when you, in this world, when you're trying to honor a woman, there's always got to be a man that gets honored too. Have you ever noticed that? They always put a man up there, you know? Anyway.
That's the duality.
There you go, because it doesn't happen with men. It really doesn't. Like you will see women so often come up when they're, engaged to be a speaker or something. They'll say, well, I'd like to thank my husband, my children, the guys don't go up there. I'd like to thank my wife. It's much more rare. Anyway, but okay, the point about that I was trying to get at is how we jumped back to a previous topic. And I think it's a perfect description of, or a descriptive scenario that we should point out is that for women, one of the main ways our minds and our conversations look different than for men is that it's a lot less linear. In other words, we're constantly taking in the information, like weaving a web, like pulling the pieces together. And so as we're talking about alcohol, then we're going back to Esther, which really it is, because if we think about the opium content and poppy seeds, and again, dosage matters. So if you eat enough of those poppy seeds unwashed, you're going to get a fair amount of opium even today. But the side effects of well, you'd have to eat an awful lot. Okay, but the side effects of the opium would be very similar to the side effects, if that's the right word, of alcohol. That kind of like soporific, right? It makes you tired. It makes you a little dreamy, a little, mellow. It's very, very similar. Now, perhaps alcohol was more readily accessible than poppy, and that's why we may have switched to that. Or maybe having the alcohol and the poppy together is one way to kind of make sure that we're in that space. But there needs to be a certain amount, whenever I would take these like Kabbalah classes. Okay, so it's not, I'm not a big advocate of like everyone doing Kabbalah or something. It was more Chassidut, but there were some Kabbalistic general theories that were involved. And sometimes when it would get to be too much for me, I would like zone out. And by sometimes I mean always. And I just couldn't take any more in. I'd be like zoning out. And I feel like when it comes to the secrets and the hidden mysteries, a lot of us do that. We either go up over it and like we're not taking it in at all because it's way too much, or we're just like, whoa, like totally zoned out. Everything slows down, stops. Maybe this is something that we're permitted on this Chag to use, say the poppy seeds or the alcohol or something to just kind of like slow down, zone out a little, get into that space where you can find the deeper meaning, really have mindfulness. about what's going on. Which brings us back to the alcohol, which is where we started. So you see how we came full circle? Well done, ladies. The last point we want to make is about gifts to the poor. So yeah, go ahead and jump in.
Go ahead, Gilla.
Right. So that's one of the mitzvot, commandments of Purim, is to give gifts to the poor, and we call it matanot la'evyonim. And so in the midst of our joy, rejoicing, partying, happy, feasting, we are commanded to remember those who are in need of, food, those who are in need. And so we need to stop a moment, dig into our pockets or into our kitchens or into our hearts and to give. So there's the duality of giving and receiving. We are receiving and we are giving. And there's also this commandment of matanot le'evyonim. You're supposed to drink till you're intoxicated, and you can't tell the difference between the blessed Mordechai and the cursed Haman, but you still have to have the wherewithal to take care of those who need taken care of. And that is so profound, and I feel part of our traditions, part of our inheritance, and something that we need to be cognizant of and mindful and give over to the next generation and those about us, how important that really is and the meaningfulness of it. So in Purim, across the globe, it's really is all about the costumes, because everybody dresses up, and for kids, it's the biggest deal on earth. And our little mishloach manot has also become, do we do this theme or that theme? And really, we matanot le'evyonim, giving to those who need, should take us inside a moment and really what is important in life. So in between being intoxicated and wearing a mask and feasting till you can be rolled down the stairs kind of thing, total gluttony, take a moment and be cognizant of those who are less fortunate. Go inside, have a moment, because we're commanded to, in the middle of this, have a moment and have the meaningfulness of this holiday and to be grateful for so much, because to be able to be offered the opportunity to give to someone in the middle of all of this is a moment to be grateful for. It's a huge gratitude. And not only that, it is an opportunity, like I said, for people to receive and to receive in joy on this day. So it's something that we usually do anonymously. It should always be done anonymously, but on Purim, we do this anonymously. In fact, many mishloach manot, our shalach manot, we do anonymously too, meaning we give to somebody else to give to someone we know. And the same with the taking care of those who need something. We often do it without going up to them and saying, here, this is for you. So inherent in that blessing and that commandment is the opportunity to be humble, So you're drunk, you're intoxicated, you overate, you're wearing a mask, you're in a costume, you don't know who you are, but you got to be humble. And it's it's literally Purim encompasses all of that. What'd you say, Chava?
Well, on the same lines, I think, as far as people have sort of become disconnected from so much, and especially our own traditions and our roots and the meaning of everything. So the mishloach manot, the gifts that we give, have become, like, okay, I'll grab some of this and I'll get some of that and I'll put this in there, and it's all prepackaged and processed. And the thought, of course, is what counts, but maybe we can put a little bit more effort into these gifts and actually make something from our own hands, make it even sweet but healthier than processed food and a package in some crinkly material. And it's nice to come up with your own recipes or use recipes that are online to make your own cookies, your own whatever. And one thing that I was thinking of, and I tried it out the other day and it was so much fun, is I took poppy seeds. I ground them up a little bit in the coffee grinder because it opens up the oils and makes it a little bit more jagged rather than just balls floating around. I mixed it with a little bit of clay, and I make citrus peel powder. I dry the citrus peels, lemon, orange, whatever, on my trees, and I grind it up. Oh my God, the smell is incredible. So you mix those things together with a little bit of water, herbal tea, or even some kind of nice oil, like you can use poppy seed oil or almond oil or something like that, just to kind of make it smooth. And then mix it together and spread it on your face. And it's a facial, and you wait until it dries and wash it off. And the poppies have nourished your skin. The citrus has opened up worlds with its aroma and vitamin C and tightening up the vessels and everything. And the clay is giving and taking what it needs to give and take. And it was like heaven. It was like going to some spa. I mean, and then you put a tiny little jar of that in your mishloach manot, and the woman is like been given a gift. Her kids can rub it all over her face, and she can sit there and just drench herself in luxury. I mean, what a nice little gift.
That's exactly what Queen Esther did, and what all those women went through was the 6 months of this and the 6 months of that, and all these beauty preparations and the oils and the creams and this isn't, I don't think we've ever talked about giving ourselves a facial in the 2 years of doing this, but there's something really getting in touch with what Queen Esther did, walking in the footsteps of our ancestors. She went through that. I mean, we get one day of Purim, but to imagine her going through beauty treatments for a year before she could step into her role as queen, to imagine her eating poppy seeds or swallowing the seeds to try and be chill, so that, and beautiful looking while she was fasting and scared to death, doing the most terrifying thing she's ever done in her life. Taking time to really walk in the footsteps of our ancestors. And obviously we're ancient roots mothering, so we're focused on Esther. Mordechai has his experience and all of this. We're not speaking to that. We're not trying to belittle that. That just isn't the perspective that we're coming from. But I think that is something important to do and to consider to help open up the true meaning of the holiday for us this year. So we have a good question in the chat, but I'd like to do that in Q&A. Is that okay? Any final words, or that's good? Okay, Lowell, why don't you close, if you'd like to close with your final words, and then we'll end the video.
Would you like to take a few more minutes for the recorded section? We have the time.
No, we're okay.
We can close now.
Yeah, we can close now.
Okay, then in that case. So we want to thank our Madam Chairs, Mrs. Chava Dagan, Mrs. J. Rivkah Asoulin, and Mrs. Gilla Weiss for another illuminating program. And we wish you, what is it, Wednesday? Shabbat Shalom, or Shabbat Sheket, if that's possible, and a happy Purim worldwide and in the land of Israel, and a Shushan Purim here in Jerusalem next week. We will reconvene in a month between Purim and Passover. So, Shalom, shalom, and from our live studio audience around the world. Okay, the recorded section is done.